Hey guys, Sam from Mandarin Duck. Hope you're all doing well. So, with Black Friday sales everywhere you could possibly turn, Mandarin Duck is no different. Mandarin Duck is currently offering a 15% discount code, a 15% coupon for any single order. But as we are giving off this discount, I figured now would be a good time to run through a few of the bows that we have and give you my thoughts and opinions, because that might help you if you're on the fence about a particular bow. Now, for the purposes of this list, I'm keeping it to bows I've actually had in my hand, actually shot for a period of time, and can actually give you feedback. Obviously, as the t-shirt suggests, I do work very closely with Mandarin Duck. I love the fact that I've worked with them since 2019 now. So you can take what I say with a pinch of salt. I might be a little bit biased, but I'm going to be as honest with these opinions as I possibly can be. Now, the Blackrock is a modern takedown longbow. It has that beautiful longbow D shape to it, and it really gives off two notions when you pick it up and you start shooting. The first one is that it is quite a strict teacher, and I'll go into a little bit more about that in just a sec. But first off, it sort of gives off that vibe of a tactical bow. Now, tactical in archery sort of annoys me a little bit, that term, but it really is fitting for this bow. So this is a fairly heavy bow. It's a solid metal riser. Obviously the cutouts help with weight and weight distribution, but you are set up to do a lot of things. Definitely going to need an arrow rest with this bow, and an arrow rest does come with this bow. But certainly the weight of the riser being a solid chunk of metal does sort of give you that survival tactical feeling to the bow. It gives you that impression that if you needed to, you could hammer a few nails in or do a few little bits. I'm not suggesting it, I'm not advising it by any source of the imagination, but you do sort of get that feel. It's a solid chunk of reliable metal in your hands. So for survival purposes, definitely does feel like that bow would work. The limbs themselves are fiberglass. So there are swings and roundabouts to fiberglass. Obviously fiberglass is a fairly versatile material. When it comes to limbs, there's a lot of negativity towards fiberglass, but it does work very well. You're not going to have insane poundages with pure fiberglass limbs, but you are going to have enough to teach you how to shoot, and if you are in that sort of tactical survival part of archery, it's definitely a bow that's worth looking at. Now, the other part of this that I alluded to just beforehand was a bit of a strict teacher. Now, in the past, I have compared longbows to sort of that grumpy old archery teacher who's very, very stern, very, very strict, not much jokes when you're actually shooting. And by that I mean the bow's gonna make you work, and if you mess up a little bit, the bow's gonna show you how you've messed up, and it's really gonna punctuate that point. However, when you get it right, when you get the drawback right, when you get the release right, when you have everything working, the bow is going to reward you. It is a solid bow, and being that it's on the sort of the cheaper side of affordability, still very well made, but is one of our more affordable bows. If you are thinking about it, it's definitely worth looking at. Now again, it is a fairly heavy bow because that is a solid chunk of metal, but it does sort of set you up. You can have various different sights. You will have an arrow rest, but you'll have different options to run different arrow rests if that's your thing and how you like to shoot. But certainly it's a bow worth looking at if you do like the whole tactical survival side of archery. The Blackrock is really going to do you well. Next up, we have got the Phantom. Now, the Phantom is a fairly good looking bow, and it's quite a departure from the previous bow mentioned. But the Phantom is a bow that I wanted to get my hands on for a fairly long time because of how it looks and how it feels in what I've seen. And earlier this year I actually got my hands on one, and then recently I was shooting with my friends, and we did comparing the Phantom to the Black Hunter, because they're in the same sort of price range. So the Phantom is a modern recurve takedown bow. It's not an ILF, it is a standard bolt-in situation. The riser itself is fairly lightweight, albeit that it is a metal riser. It is fairly lightweight and it's tapped, so you can put sights, stabilizers on it. And I think for the Phantom, if you are going to be shooting for any length of time, probably want to get yourself a good stabilizer, a good counterweight to stick on the front of that. Obviously with bows that you can put counterweights on, you can also set them up for bow fishing. I don't know how good that would be for bow fishing, but certainly the length of it, given that it's more into that field recurve side of things, does sort of lend itself to that style where you need a compact bow rather than a big long thing. But shooting it was very easy. It's a very easy, rewarding bow to shoot. You will have the option to shoot off the shelf or get yourself an arrow rest. An arrow rest does come with it, and as I said in my review of the Phantom, I think the arrow rest that comes with the actual bow is better. Is better than the expensive arrow rest that we had on it for most of the footage that was being shot. And we were using expensive, the Timble Doodle arrow rest, which is not a cheap arrow rest by any stretch of the imagination, but the cheaper arrow rest that comes with the bow, in my opinion, worked much better. Much better. It's easy to draw back, it's nice and relaxed. And when you do shoot it, you get that recurve feeling as opposed to that longbow feeling, which in my opinion is just a nicer way of doing it. The limbs are a mix of fiberglass and woods, which is fairly typical. So they're standard limbs that you'd find. Nothing really special about that. The fact that it's all black does sort of lead to that sort of feel. If you get my meaning, if that even meant anything. But the Phantom itself, very affordable, very fun to shoot. If I was going to shoot it long term, I would definitely add a counterweight to it, because it is, I think it's a bow that does need it. But if you're a backyard shooter, or if you're just getting into archery, or you like bare bow shooting, you like the bows to feel different, then yeah, it's not a must. But if I was shooting it for long periods of time, I would add that extra weight. Aside from that, it's a cracking little bow. For the price, even at full price, a really good bow. You get your form down, you get your stance right, you get that whole release going, and the bow is really going to reward you. And if you mess up, it's not as severe as some bows, but obviously if you've messed up. Next up, let's talk about the classic. Let's talk about the Black Hunter, probably the signature bow of Mandarin Duck. Now, I've said this 100 times before, there's a number of models of the Black Hunter. Not all of them come from Mandarin Duck. Don't buy this bow from AliExpress or Alibaba or places like that, because they use cheap and nasty woods. I've said this so many times, but those woods, those bows will explode in your hand. The wood that they use for their risers is just not strong enough to hold the bow. It's why you typically won't have a 3D printed bow. I mean, unless you can get really good stuff, you're typically not going to have that, because the riser's just not going to be that strong. But with our Black Hunter, obviously we do take pride in our work. Mistakes do happen, but we always need to rectify them as quick as we can, and we're straight on it as soon as we know there's an issue, which is not something you're going to get from Alibaba, as a number of customers have told me. But what made the Black Hunter the classic that it is? In my opinion, it's the grip. Now, it's a very bare bow, and it's a bow that I still love shooting. I've got the longbow version, and I really enjoy it. It's not a typical longbow bow, as it's done with bamboo limbs, and I always love shooting with bamboo limbs, so it doesn't feel like the stern old archery teacher. But that grip is one that just fills your hand so well. It's such a nice grip to hold. It's such a nice feeling to take that bow up and shoot with it. It really is such a good feeling. Now, you're not going to be able to have arrow rests with the Black Hunter. You're not going to be able to have sights unless you want to drill into the riser, which I wouldn't recommend, because it compromises the integrity of the riser. And as I said, with the cheap knockoffs, the bows themselves can actually explode in your hand. It's not something you want to go through. So this is a bare bow. This is a bow for the stripped down archers, the bare bow archers, the ones that don't like the bells and whistles that comes with archery. This is for the pure traditional shooters. Now the limbs are bolt-on, and the Mark II that we have, we've heard this a lot. People have preferred the older limbs where they have a lot more cuttings and stuff like that. The reality is it's just so much harder to make those types of limbs. It's so much harder, so much longer to get those replacement limbs out that we just weren't able to keep up. So we used the Mark II, which is the same grip, it is the same bow, it's just we're able to make the limbs a lot faster than we were before, but it still has so many benefits to it. It still feels like the beautiful Black Hunter, the staple and the classic signature of so many archery endeavors and archery journeys. It's such a fun bow to shoot, and it was, in fact, for me, it was the first bow I got from Mandarin when I started working with them. So it's a bow that's very close to my heart. I really do love that bow. In my opinion, the only reason why that bow wouldn't be suitable for you is if you prefer sights and arrow rests and stabilizers and counterweights and things like that, because the Black Hunter just won't let you have them. It is a bare bow. It is for the traditional purists, but it's such a good bow. It's such a good bow, and for the price, especially with the 15% discount that's going on right now, definitely worth taking a look at. Now the Thorn is a cracker of a bow. It is your takedown horse bow. Now it is fiberglass. The whole bow is fiberglass, so it is lightweight, and it's lightweight for a reason. The fact that it is such a short bow, the fact that it is takedown, that it comes apart in the middle, means that it does have to be fairly light, otherwise it would be a lot more expensive to make. We had to do it from fiberglass, but I kind of prefer it being lightweight. In my opinion, the best way to learn archery is to pick up either a traditional stick bow or a traditional horse bow and shoot. Not put it on the left or put it on the right or the inside, outside, not worry about the grip. Go as natural as possible, because that way you can build your archery on what you feel is naturally possible. Because there are people who shoot a long bow with the arrow being on the inside, and some people can even use the Mediterranean release for this. I can't. I've been planning to do a video on this for a long time about the whole debate back and forth, but it does work. There's videos of people making it work. I just can't do it. It's fine. But being able to pick up a bow and shooting as you feel is more natural is the best way to learn archery. Once you've got that, then you can start going into, okay, well, this is the style I prefer, so this is what I'm going to explore. And then later on, maybe I want to try that, maybe I want to try this, blah 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 blah. And you've got the options to go from there. But the reason why I love the Thorn so much is because it is such a lightweight bow. So when I'm going to people who have never shot a day before in their lives, I will probably take the Thorn. If I can only take one bow, I'll be taking the Thorn, unless I've had a request for something else, because the Thorn is going to let them shoot how they want to shoot. It's a fairly lightweight bow. When I measured it at 24 pounds, which is fairly good. It's good for kids. Might be a bit tough for some of the smaller kids, but it's fairly good for kids. Good for any adult to shoot, because 24 pounds is not that much. And then you can can start to work on the draw and how you want to hold the bow, how you want to hold the string and draw back, whether it's going to be a thumb release, Saracen release, Mediterranean, 300, whatever. The bow just gives you options right at the start for how you want your archery journey to carry on. Now, you're not going to be able to add stabilizers, sights, or anything like that, so it is a traditional bare bow, but it is a horse bow. So if you do ride horses, you are going to be able to experiment with horseback archery, which is something that's pretty cool. In terms of what the bow actually does itself, I mean, it's such a nice bow to string up. It's fairly easy. You do have to use the step through method, which is cringy for a lot of people for a lot of different archery stuff. But there's a flat shape of the Thorn allows you to do that, sort of minimizes the damage that you can do to a bow limbs by stringing up with that method. The fact that the actual knocking points are adjusted, and I said this in the review, mean that there's less worry of it slipping off as you are stringing it up and as you do shoot it. Still worth taking that extra few seconds just to make sure it is strung up right, and that's the same with every bow. But it's such a fun bow to shoot, and that's a word that I keep coming back to with the Thorn every time I speak about it. It's a fun bow. It's such a fun bow. Love it. Absolutely worth the time. Again, still on the affordability because it's not particularly heavy bow. There's only one draw weight, and it is what it is. But it's such fun to shoot that bow. It gives so many options for your archery. And it's just a pick up and go bow. I love that. Absolutely love that. Now the Raider is a really, really cool bow. So the Raider is the ILF bow. Now this is the ILF bow that I knew about for about a year before it came out, before it was announced, and I was very excited for this bow because this bow is one of the bows I've dreamt of. Now the riser itself, which is the Raider, and you use combinations of limbs. We do ILF limbs, but obviously best part of an ILF system is you can swap it out and do whatever you want. But the Rider Razor itself is cut aluminium. It's cast forged, not actual that brain moment fixing everything. So it is a fairly heavy bit of kit, and it is quite an aggressive shot, and I was quite surprised by that, because with the limbs that Mandarin duck do, the limbs are not excessively large. They're fairly standard, but they're not short by any means. And normally with the short bows are the more aggressive bows. So your shorter field archery recurve bows will be the more aggressive. So the Phoenix, the Phantom will be more aggressive than the Black Hunter. But it was quite surprising that this Raider, which is a fairly long bow, was as aggressive as it was, but it's an aggression that you really like. The grip itself fits to your hand so well, and it sort of gets you into that mindset of really wanting to shoot that next arrow because of how excited the bow feels for shooting. Now, as it is an ILF riser, again, you can swap out the limbs and do whatever you want. So you can find longer limbs if that's your preference, shorter limbs if that's your preference, and as long as you've got the string to match, the riser will hold up its end no problem. You can also put in counterweights, as well as sights and arrow rests, as well as shooting off the shelf if that's something you prefer. I've got mine to shoot off the shelf because that's just how I prefer to shoot. For this one, unlike the Phantom, where I would have to have a counterweight, I've not really felt the need to put a counterweight on the Raider. It's a good bow. It's a cracker of a bow, and it's definitely one that I can have shot all day and for days at a time, and not felt the need to adjust and put anything extra on it. So while it is on the slightly more expensive side of things, it's definitely worth taking a look at if you like ILF systems, or if you want to go into ILF systems. I would say the Raider over something like the Harbinger, purely because you can add things to the Raider. radar, beg your pardon. You can add things to the radar, so you can add that stabilizer if you really want it. You can add the sights if you really want to. It's not a traditional bow, it is a modern recurve ILF system, but it gives you a lot more options. I think if you're looking at ILF, it's a really good bow to look at. The Devourer. Now, the Devourer is the creme de la creme. It is the premium bow from Mandarin Duck, and I've said this throughout since I got my hands on the Devourer from the very, very first time. If you bought this bow from other companies, you'd be looking at $1,000. You would. It is so well made. It is a traditional longbow, flatbow, hybrid, reflex deflex. Just a pure traditional work of art. It's a takedown bow, so it separates in the middle rather than more typical takedown bows where you just take off the limbs. So halfway through the riser, you bit to pull it apart and store it if that's what you need to. I've got mine very proudly on the wall behind the camera. It's a bow that I love. It's a bow that I love so very, very much because it's excitable. It's an exciting bow. In the past, when speaking about limbs, I have compared bamboo limbs to a puppy. To a puppy, which when I say it out loud never really makes much sense, but I'll go into it a little bit further. So the puppy is excited to see you when you get home. The puppy is jumping all over you and it's going crazy and it's absolutely adoring you. It's been a hard day at work, you finally got home and the puppy's going crazy because, oh, I can't believe you're here, it's amazing, the best thing ever. And then you snap your fingers and this puppy turns into a trained wolf. So this puppy now suddenly sats you down, brings you a cold drink, gets your slippers, gets your dinner on the way maybe. And the reason why I like this analogy is because it's a fun bow. It's such a fun bow. And it's relaxing and it's easy to draw back and it's easy to loose the arrows and it's easy to shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. But when you've done everything right and then you let go, the moment you let go, that's when you've snapped your finger. That's when this excitable puppy has suddenly stopped jumping all over you and suddenly gets the job done. That arrow is gonna go where you sent it. And I love that. I love that so much. Typically, in my experience, I've only really found this with bows that have bamboo limbs. The Devourer does not have bamboo limbs. So I was really shocked and I had to double check this a couple of times. There's no bamboo in this, it feels like a bamboo bow. Like, I love me some bamboo bows, it's cool, like, you can tell me got bamboo. But no, it's walnut with a few other composites in there. But it feels so good to shoot, so good to shoot. Now it is a longbow, so when you're taking it through dense woodland, you're going to have to be a little more careful. That being said, it's easy to get used to something like that. It really is. It's easy to get used to the length of a bow when you're shooting. You just sort of got to keep in mind that when you are set in a position where you're going to shoot, of where those limbs are going to go after you've let go of that string, but that's easy to keep in mind. It is such a nice bow to shoot. Now you can't add stabilizers, you can't add sights or things like that. It is the bow that you get. You get a case with it, a nice little leather case to keep it safe when you're traveling. You get the string and the bow, and that's it. That's it. You get the basics with it, but what you get is enough for that bow to really put a smile on your face. It's such a good bow. It's such a good bow. Now, if you're on a budget, I personally wouldn't recommend the Devourer unless your budget is in that same sort of price range, because it is the most expensive bow. It's the premium bow that we have. And it's a bow that I absolutely love. It's a bow I absolutely adore because it's so much fun to shoot. And I will stand by this. I think it's a bow that if you buy it today, you'll be shooting it next year. You'll be shooting it the year after. The only time you'll put it down is if you're building up and you want to go to stronger bows. That's it. I think that's the only reason why you'd not shoot a bow. I shoot my bows in sort of rotation. There'll be times where I want to shoot the Black Hunter and that's all I want to shoot, and then I'll shoot the Raider for a bit, and then I'll go for the Thorn, and then I'll go for the Devourer. But these are bows that are just so much fun to shoot, and the Devourer for me is a top pick. So if you're not on a budget, definitely worth having a look at the Devourer any time of the day. It's left hand, right hand, you know, we've got those options. It's not a bow that you'll be able to suddenly go, well, now I'm going to shoot this style of archery and just change it over, because then it's cut to center. But it is definitely a bow. If you're a left-handed shooter, right-handed shooter, we've got those options available. It's such a nice bow. It's such a nice bow. It's a beautiful bow to look at, and it is the reason why I drilled holes into my wall with my flat and put up my bow mounts, just so I could show off that bow to everyone that comes to my home. It's such a beautiful bow. But there we go. That is my experience with the bows that I've shot. There may be one or two that I've left out here. But honourable mentions for archery gear. I love the Seeker set. I love the Seeker quiver. It's my preferred quiver when I go out shooting, because I can either have it on my belt or I can have it strapped around my leg. I don't particularly like shooting a lot of arrows anymore, because I have to find the whatsits, and that can be annoying if I'm not shooting at a target. So having fairly lightweight quivers really does work for me. I absolutely love it. The guard, the bracer works so well, especially when it gets to this time of year, when you get into autumn, winter, and you start putting on the jumpers and the sweaters and the hoodies and stuff like that. The fact that I can just put that on top of my clothing, or in the spring and in the summer where I'm just wearing a t-shirt, I can just have it like that. That works really well, and the actual glove itself I think is really cool. So they're definitely worth looking at if you're looking at the protection side and the quiver and the accessory side as well. But there you go, that is my list. If there's any comments, let me know down below. I do my best to keep up with the Facebook comments, but I don't get notifications, so it's a bit tricky with that one. But if there are more pressing issues, if you do have an urgent question you want, head on over to our Facebook page or our Instagram page, because those notifications do come through to my phone. So wherever I am, as long as I'm awake, I'll check them and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. All relevant links down below. If we are still in time for the Black Friday discounts when you're viewing this, those links will be down below. If not, these are still really good posts and things to check out. You're fantastic. I'll see you next time.